Can you show the game again, like the hard copy?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I'll show you the box link because I just cracked it open. But can you see anything?
At this point, I should share the vessel setup of the game.
Yeah. Oh, that's better. Never mind. I can't really top that. Not going to top that. So this says, does this have the newest No, these are. Oh, it does have the newest graphics in it. Okay.
Yeah, this is with the newest graphics.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's go through the game mechanics with the help of this vessel module. Honestly, where should we start?
I don't remember if you have a sequence of play or not, but I would suggest starting with that because if you've been following around by now, you probably have a rough idea how all these forces are lined up anyways, although I'm not really sure how much people have been following the whole chain of stuff, but different story.
Yeah, actually, the thing that I want to do before that, it's a great suggestion, and we'll do it. Just 2 words on the units on the map and the factions.
Okay. Yes.
So this is Serb standalone against Axis and allies. The point being is that only 2 factions in the game are playable out of all of these different colored units. So one faction would be the Serbs or the Chetniks or the Yugoslav army, whichever you prefer. None of them are actually fully accurate. That's a huge problem. I think that David Martin also used the term loyalists. You can use the term Serb nationalists, whatever. Again, none of this is fully accurate, but it kind of, it should kind of help you to get an idea where these guys are coming from.
Yeah, it might be better call them loyalists because that's probably like the most PC version. It also lets people know that these guys are aligned with the king of Yugoslavia. I mean, that might be the easiest way to go.
Yeah, this is the recommendation by David Martin, and I mean that's not a bad idea. In the game, they're called Chetniks because this is the popular name, which is actually it's kind of inaccurate also because they're not technically Chetniks. They're legally the Yugoslav army. They're led by officers.
The funny thing is, at the beginning of this whole affair, they're probably the most organized force outside of the Germans, but the Germans all left fairly quickly.
Of course. Of course. So outside of the Germans, yes, these guys start reorganizing basically on day 1. Also, there is the other playable faction, which are the communist partisans. So in Yugoslavian context, you don't use the word partisans unless you mean the communist partisans. So if you talk about Poland, partisans are Polish partisans are the Yugoslav Chetniks.
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny because in general, partisans are like used for any sort of guerrilla type force, but in this context, they are specifically Tito supported guerrilla forces.
Titos or communists, because actually both they call themselves the National Liberation Army. Again, all of these names are, of course, semi-inaccurate. Of course, they're not. They're obviously not an army. I mean, they're a military wing of the Communist Party.
Yeah.
But some of them don't realize it yet. But actually, they're controlled by the Communist Party. So also, they're not fully Tito's partisans yet, and they're not fully Communist partisans yet. But these are the closest.
Yeah, I forgot about that because at the beginning of this thing, he's just a big figure. He's not really the leader yet. So yeah, that's part of the game is how he becomes such a big figure.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the aspects of the game, if you play the partisan side or Tito side, is the idea that you should be as independent as possible from the Soviets, from Moscow, because if you are too much in their zone of interest, then you cannot break free and be your own thing and be independently leader of independent Yugoslavia.
So in fact, what would really happen is you'd wind up being another country on the other side of the wall there. You'd be a Soviet client state, which somehow he dodged that bullet, but we can talk about that another time.
Yeah, that's for another time. But also,
Yeah.
this also factors in for the partisan specific victory conditions. So for this game, only Chetniks and Partisans are playable parties. So the Blues and the Reds are playable. And for a solo game, only the Blues are playable. Only the Chetniks are playable. Because ultimately, you can simulate Tito's actions through a bot, while on the other side, the Chetnik, the loyalist side, the Mihailovic side, had a wide variety of problems and a wide variety of things that they needed to do. You'll see later as we start explaining the game.
Okay.
There are other units there. All the other units are Axis units, meaning the Germans, the Italians, the Bulgarians as the occupiers, and also let's call them Croat and Serb Quislings.
That the gray guys? Yeah, that's the gray with black numbers, right?
Yes. The gray with black numbers are Croatian armed forces. Not necessarily only them, of course, but these are the main faction of the local Quislings, which are non-Serb, while actually the white guys are called the Watchmen, which are the Quislings of Serb and Slovene origin.
So the white and gray ones, the white ones are kind of Serbians with kind of pseudo-Axis leanings, and they're gray. Well, I guess they all have Axis leanings, but the white ones are Serbians, where the gray ones are non-Serbians, basically.
Or the Croats and the Bosniaks. More
sorry. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a better way to put it. Okay. Yeah, they're Croats and Bosnians, and the whites are Serbians.
Yeah, that's the Slovenes are complicated. It's how it is. It's a game. It's one province, and it couldn't be helped. Okay, so because there is this popular divide on how the people in general see the Axis, and it's a big divide between the Serbs and the Croats and the Bosniaks. Let's go into the game phases as you recommended.
Look at that. Wow. It's right in the module. Outstanding. Okay.
Yeah, I had a great friend that set up the module.
Yeah, he did. He did a good job.
The phases of a turn, if it is a spring turn, there's a total of 16 turns in the game. And each spring turn, new cards are added to the deck, and the deck is shuffled. Obviously, the first turn is in fall of 1941, and the cards are ready. There's no shuffling to be had, so no worries there. Then we draw 5 cards and see their effect, and there are 3 types of cards: partisan cards, events, and Chetnik cards. So let me open up for the first turn, and let me show the cards. There'll be no surprises here because these cards are already pre-packaged, so to say.
Right.
First of all, there is a permanent card called Railway Sabotage. And during the first 4 turns, if you have 4 units in Serbia, you can try and perform a specific type of sabotage which would add to your allied support. So we can talk about the hugely important aspect of the game called support.
Oh my gosh, this is where the whole game kind of pivots, actually, right here.
As you said, the whole game pivots around these supports. And there's actually 3 types of supports. They are the Serb support, the Allied support, and the Croat support. Again,
okay, there it is.
This is a game about a very complicated situation, so some kind of generalization was absolutely necessary. So the big catch about the supports is that both the Chetniks and the Partisans fight each other over Serb and Allied support. The Chetniks come with a prepackaged advantage or an edge in Serb support, and ultimately, if they lose the Serb support, if it moves down to the left side, which is in favor of the Partisans can even have a decisive victory.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if they're supporting the partisans at that point, you really have nothing left to play for.
Exactly.
I mean,
and also, there is a Allied support, which is actually the best kind of support that you can have in the game, because it's used on each province, as it says on the color scheme there next to it.
was it actually possible for the Chetniks to get a decisive victory? Because you don't shift Allied support very often, right?
Allied support is very difficult to shift because there are two things that can influence Allied support. One is to get the favorable card, which is very nice. And Partisans in 1943 will start getting a bunch of very favorable cards, which will draw the Allied support to their side. And the other type of receiving Allied support is by killing Germans. Now, as opposed to Yugoslav propaganda movies and Force 10 from Navarone and things like that, killing Germans in Yugoslavia was a incredibly difficult prospect.
Well, yeah, because they actually mostly know what they're doing, except for maybe the German garrisons. The actual units are pretty damn good at what they do.
Exactly. Even their units are not mostly frontline units, but still they have real armaments. They have artillery. They have air support. Nifty things like that the guerrillas don't really have. And also, the Germans have one thing that is, I think, very consistently neglected in the Quisling factor. So the Germans
So the Quislings generally support the Axis most of the time?
Well, all of the time.
All the time. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess that's why they're called Quislings. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So the whole point is that the Croat and the Serb Quislings are there to soak up damage so the Germans can remain unscathed.
Well, where have I heard that story repeated time and time again? Okay.
Anyways,
yeah, it's kind of fighting insurgency 101, I guess.
Exactly. You want to have locals that will soak up your damage and free up your occupier units.
Yes.
So the point is that if you want to kill Germans, first of all, you need to kill the Quislings. They're on the same province, which is of course much easier than destroying Germans, but it's still not easy because the Germans will be defending them. And this is a hugely difficult prospect, and this is obviously very reflective of the actual things that happened in World War II Yugoslavia, where a very small number of Germans were actually killed by the guerrillas. Firstly, because it was very difficult, and secondly, and this is also reflected in the game because the guerrillas are fighting amongst themselves.
Since we're talking about that, let's say for sake of argument, not that anything's going to happen post-Savina, for example, but if the Serbians go on offense there, they have to kill those two Quislings before they can even touch the German one there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's hard to do. All right, go ahead then. Continue. Oh, you'd have a lot more luck in probably Shumadia, I think. How do you say that province? Is it Shah?
It's called Shumadia.
Oh, Shumadia. Okay.
All right. Exactly. And the point is that there are also some how should I describe it? You as the guerrilla have some kind of an edge when you're fighting the Quislings. If the Chetniks are fighting the Serb Quislings, or if the Partisans are fighting the Croat Quislings. Okay, you have infiltrated them,
Okay.
and some of them are actually working for you clandestinely. And for instance, the Chetniks and the Serb Quislings, in the game terms, are also practically very closely cooperating.
Yeah.
And Serb Quislings are only good if the partisans are attacking the Germans. Otherwise, they're of no use because they will surrender immediately to the Chetniks.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Okay, and also we have to get back to the supports. We have the Croat support, which is basically a support of the Croats and Bosniaks, but also I guess Albanians, part of Slovenes, whatever.
Right.
These they don't support the Chetniks. Their support is divided between the Axis and the partisans. So,
oh yeah, because they're not going to support the Chetniks at all. Why would they? That's not their point.
not organically, I guess. If the Chetniks have allied support, that of course means that the Croats and the Bosniaks see the writing on the wall, and they will obviously cooperate with the Chetniks. But organically speaking, not really.
Yeah.
So this railway sabotage card is so absolutely crucial. And in terms of the game, in terms of the practicality of the game, it actually helps the Chetnik player immensely, because the Chetnik player will be keeping Serbia as close as possible. Then we have the Proclamation of Uprising. This is a partisan card. This card allows the partisan to basically force the Chetnik to attack the Germans. Mm-hmm. And also, this card allows for both the Chetniks, but even more for the partisans, to have a stronger punch when they're attacking the Axis. This card is only worth for one turn.
Let's see, move service support. If you didn't attack Germans, you have +4 support. Oh, that's a good one. Do not give. Oh, so this pretty much guarantees you're good. Well, yeah, this is the thing that pretty much starts everything in the initial uprising. So, yeah.
Well, initial uprising in Serbia proper. So that would be these blue provinces. The initial uprising in the other provinces, the green ones, is linked to something else. And I think this will come out soon. Yes. To this guy and his Ustaše. So this is a rather nasty story that I guess that you're familiar with. And honestly, this affects the game only to create the Chetnik victory point loss. So actually, this guy and his Ustaše are attacking the Serbs in these green provinces, aside from Slovenia.
Right.
And this works to the detriment of the Chetniks, because ultimately the Chetniks are a Serbian army. This would be, I guess, their best description, because they're led by Serbian officers and most of their rank and file are Serbs. And obviously, the more Serbs are killed, the worse it's going to be for the Chetniks. And also, the more Serbs are killed, there is a greater destruction and greater upheaval. And this also helps Tito, ultimately. And we have other cards, 2 of them, and these are Chetnik cards. So these 2 guys are some of the leaders of the uprising in Serbia. Well, these 2 guys are some of the leaders of the uprising in eastern Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Oh, okay. I'm actually not familiar with these 2 guys.
These ones.
The Donjic and Todorovic.
Yes.
I've not heard these names before, but they didn't probably get as much writing as the other guys did, because they're in a more less developed area where all their stuff's taking place.
Actually, both of them were huge at the start of the war.
Oh, okay.
so the Germans had to even undertake rather big offensives to take out Dangic. And there were also a very complicated situation in eastern Bosnia, as you can imagine, because practically, aside from Bulgarians, every other formation was active there. So it was total chaos. Well, I guess that we only talked about them and touched upon them for a very short time because it's a very complicated story. Anyways, they're there for
complicated.
yeah. So these
that
guys
might be more complicated.
So what the point is that all of these cards, the Proclamation of Uprising, Dangic and Todorovic, and Hellfire over Kraljevo are all valid for one turn. And when they're played, they're discarded.
So pretty much what happens there is you get a one shot of each of those, then you kind of have to hang on after that or try and eke out some gains somewhere else. Because I think your more permanent game altering events start filtering in after the first turn, right?
Yes. So Pavelic will remain to be drawn in some other turn. And Railway Sabotage is going to be in effect for the next 3 turns. And it's a very nice and nifty card, which would allow the Chetniks in practice to move the Allied support to the maximum allowed, which is the 7th space. The 8th and 9th space are locked until Italy surrenders.
So the Chetniks really have to hang on for a couple turns in.
Yes.
Okay.
So, because ultimately, at the beginning of the game, the Chetniks will be in the ascendant. They will be stronger. The point of the partisans is to hang on for the first 2 years, and from 1943 to try to get the best cards possible, and then try to get on the offensive, and somehow get to Serbia, and in particular to this Pomoravlje province, in order to meet the Soviet Red Army coming in from Bulgaria and Romania.
So not that this actually happened, but if there were Chetniks there, the Russians would have just obliterated them?
No, they would cooperate.
Oh.
And after the Germans are kicked out, the Soviets would capture them and turn them over to the partisans.
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, you know how that ends.
Yeah. So this is the cards are drawn, so the players will decide whether to use their own colored cards or not. And after that, we go to the next phase of the turn, which is reinforcements. And both of these are highly dependent on support. And this is one of the reasons why support is so crucial. Depending on the level of support that you have, the space where the support is, you see a bonus there, bonus number there.
Right.
For instance, for Serb support now, the Chetnik is +2, the Partisan is +1.
Yep.
Allied is +0, while Croat support is currently only for the Axis. This, in essence, means that the Chetniks will be now placing 2 reinforcements, while Partisans will be placing 1.
Okay, so really you want to bump the Allied support up by 1 so you could place a maximum of 3 pieces then.
If you're the Chetnik, yes. You want to raise the Allied support as soon as possible, at least 1 space to the right, and you can have 3 units that you can place. And if you're the Partisan, you have to wait for a card which would allow you to move the Croat support to the 4 Axis and Partisan space. And this will allow you to get two reinforcements.
Okay.
Later in the game, when the Partisan gets tons of Allied support, this would mean the ton of reinforcements. So this is crucial. You get as many reinforcements as you have support. This game is not the control of specific provinces is not relevant for this game because you don't actually control it. Once that you liberate the province, however, you get a you get to mobilize there, and it's very nice. The numbers are, you get to mobilize in one province as many troops as you can get for each turn during the reinforcement phase. So it's very nice, you
Okay,
know.
so you get reinforcements for support and you get reinforcements for liberated areas.
You get at the point of liberating a province. Let's say that Chetniks have now destroyed these Germans and these Quislings in Šumadija. Because Šumadija is in Serbia, the Chetniks would be getting an appropriate allotted number of reinforcements. So this is in the liberation of provinces table. So in Serbia, liberating insurgents place 2 ordinary and 1 elite reinforcement. So for Chetniks, you have soldiers, which are the standard tier, and a veteran, which is the elite tier. And suddenly you have 5 units there instead of 2. Which would be
You're going to be a German magnet at that point, but hey.
Exactly. The Germans will come. The Germans will come. Let's say that somehow the Chetniks have liberated Šumadija, although this is very difficult. And we'll see what will happen later in the turn. There is a first and second potential activation round. This is also dependent on the type of command cards that you have. Now, starting command cards for the Chetniks and for the Partisans are kind of bad. They got only 2 activation points in the whole turn. So this means that they can only activate 1 or 2 provinces each for movement or attack. Or potentially do some other things like sabotage or getting an attack bonus and so on and so forth. So at the start of the game, they're kind of terrible. At the end of the game, they're going to have 4, 5, or 6 activation points. But otherwise, the provinces can be activated. Your units can be activated in provinces to do sabotage. Now, this is actually representative of these small-scale actions that are done against the Germans, both in order to get some weapons, to make some damage, and to toughen up your troops a bit. So as a result of sabotage, your normal tier troops might become your elite troops, which is very nifty. The problem is that you might waste an activation point or if the sabotage is not successful. So
yeah, but I guess the trade-off is you can liberate something and lose all your stuff, or you could take a chance you get better troops. So I guess it's kind of how you want to roll. Do you want to roll a dice and do for max liberation, or do you want to just kind of slowly build your forces up? Okay, that's a good player decision there.
Let's assume that the Chetniks during their activation have really gone all out on the Germans and have destroyed the Germans here in Šumadija and have mobilized units. Now they're going to suffer an Axis offensive. And this is going to be very nasty. So we will consult a specific table and see what the general rules are, what are the priority targets, what are the targets if there are no priority targets, and what happens with the German reinforcements. Now, to make a very long story short, as you said, the liberated province is a magnet for the Germans. They will be hitting it with all they have, and because this is very early in the war, the Germans are not very forgiving, and there is a calculation to be done based on basic survival. So, in a nutshell, basic survival in German parts of the map, which are these, which are the blue and light green provinces.
Okay.
Survival is very unforgiving. Up to 2 units can survive. Anything above it is in danger. While in the Italian zone, these 5 dark green provinces, well, the Italians are a bit more forgiving, so you can count on 3 units, 3 insurgents per province surviving. And
Interesting. Okay.
And also because there is an offensive, a maximum of 2 insurgents are destroyed. So the other ones run back to the hills, and all of the destroyed Axis units come back. So this is a very nasty thing, and this is one of the reasons why it doesn't really pay to liberate provinces, actually.
I see. You're actually better off just hanging out in the Italian zone and then maybe taking a pot shot every once in a while.
Exactly. You can do sabotage, which can't give you any negative effects unless you're doing this railway sabotage, in which case some people might get shot if the Chetniks roll badly on their dice roll check. On the liberation side, a huge problem is the other guy.
Yeah.
Actually, the other guys might be even a greater problem than the Axis in some instances.
It is how it worked out in the long run. They were definitely a much bigger problem.
Exactly. There are 2 things to be said. First of all, yes, the Axis are chasing you. The Axis want to destroy you, of course. Yep. But the problem is that these other guys know how to destroy you much better, because they know the people. They know the people, and they're trying to uproot your organization and well, try to shoot your people. That's one of the reasons why Chetniks have gone against the partisans, because the partisans started shooting their class enemies. So there's this thing. And the other thing is, if you try to attack the Axis and the other guys are in your rear, you can rest assured that they'll be attacking you there.
Pretty much a guarantee. That's the time for them to attack you.
Exactly.
Boy.
So this is a very nasty 3-sided conflict, and I mean it might be a kind of a surprise to people that are expecting here that they're going to see some hero story about Tito and whatever and so on and so forth. No, it doesn't work.
He's only heroic because he got to write the history book. That's the only reason. Had Mihailovich won, it would have been a different history.
Exactly. As we did an episode a while ago, don't expect Lord of the Rings. This is more similar to the Game of Thrones. Some guys are bad, some guys are terrible. So the last phase would be, of course, some potential of destroyed CAF markers, because it might be relevant. And this is relevant.
What does CAS stand for?
Croatian Armed Forces. So okay, these are these gray guys.
Yeah, the gray
and this
guys.
Is this is relevant for the effect of the Pavelić card.
Absolutely. Interesting.
Yeah. So basically, what is important is that the Chetniks start off at a much more favorable position.
Mm-hmm.
They have a better, well, slightly better, but importantly better support. And also they have an ingrained victory point advantage, but which is going to be slowly drained by them losing victory points. The main mechanic of the Chetniks losing victory points is through this Pavelić card.
That's pretty accurate, though, because once he started really going after the Serbs, he kind of realized that Mihailovich wasn't going to be able to keep the Serbian people from getting killed off as much as he would have liked.
Exactly, and ultimately it works in favor of Tito. Also, there is a very nasty mechanism called reprisals, and which work very much against the Chetniks. But I guess that we can talk about this in the next episode when we start talking about combat.